everybody, welcome to Watch Maury, and today I'm counting down the top 10 reasons why you're going to burn yourself out of Lolita fashion as a newbie. Hi everybody, it's Maury Mademoiselle. So today is going to be kind of a video that may or may not get me in trouble. There is going to be a lot of opinions about this, but I wanted to get a couple things out of the way. First, if you exhibit any of these traits, that doesn't necessarily mean that you are a bad Lolita, and it doesn't mean that you are not worthy of the community. It doesn't mean that you're not welcome. It doesn't mean. Second of all, a lot of these traits here do correspond with people who are neurodivergent. I am neurodivergent. Understand that if there is a trait on here that you identify with, I am not personally coming for you. The reason why I made this list at all is kind of just a reflection piece of things that I'm noticing in the community. 2020 was weird. A lot of people decided that they wanted to join a new community. They wanted to join a new hobby. Like, we were bored. We wanted stuff to do. What's better to do than join a new hobby? Some people, that's alternative fashion, and welcome. You know what I mean? Like, just because you joined in 2020 doesn't make you less of a Lolita. Like, I've heard a few people say this. Most of these people are like newbies. I've been noticing a lot of newbies in the community are really, really gatekeepy, which is not acceptable. We don't appreciate gatekeeping in our community at all. But unfortunately, when a community grows, that is more chances of getting more types of people. And some of those people are not super great. And that's just how it is. That's how the cookie crumbles, unfortunately. And as the internet, we have to learn how to accept that, huh? So I'm just going to count down the top 10. It's not a phase, Mom. Things that are definitely going to show you that it is indeed a phase. Most of these things, I notice that you kind of have to exhibit more than one of these traits for the trendiness of Lolita to wear off. Or you have to kind of exhibit one or two of these traits to a really high degree for you to get burnt out really quick. So if you notice that you're exhibiting a lot of these traits and you're questioning whether Lolita is a good community for you, maybe kind of reflect on that. Like, we want you to stay in the community for the right reasons. And the right reasons is it makes you feel good, you love wearing it, you know, you feel at home, etc., etc., etc. Like, you know, there is no wrong way to be a Lolita unless you are just a gatekeeping, rude asshole and you're unaccepting, unwilling to change, and just mean. And that is really pretty much how to be the wrong kind of Lolita. Okay, so anyway, know that I'm not coming for you and that this video is kind of a joke, but at the same time, it kind of isn't, because these are like real trends that I've seen, like as a moderator in some communities and also as somebody who's kind of active in a beginner Lolita group. These are the things that I'm noticing personally, and I'd love to know what your opinion is. Do you agree with this list? Do you think that there should be anything added? Are there things that you don't agree with this list? Leave it down in the comments. I'm interested in seeing what your opinions are. Number 10, you are super indecisive about what substyle you want to be in. Is everybody indecisive? A lot of people are when they first start out, you know. There was a moment in time that I wanted to be a sweet Lolita, and then I just kind of didn't feel like it matched my personal style. So I have some sweet Lolita pieces, and the rest of it is mostly classic and gothic. Classic and gothic. But what I'm talking about is you make a full collage of like Mohamed Moitier's Iron Gate, and it's like super mega gothic. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, you know what? I don't actually want to wear that. I think I want to wear like Magic Princess by Angelic Pretty. And then you make a whole collage of that. And you're like, oh, well, you know what? I don't know if I want to wear that either. And then all of a sudden you're just like, oh, literally everything that Mary Magdalene puts out is like my jam. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, actually, like I really like old school. Oh, well, actually, I really like, you're going to tire yourself out. Like, I know that the old adage of like, we'll pick one, see if you like it, and then go from there. I know that sounds super boring, but honestly, I think that is a really good way to do it. Like, pick a dress that you like and then make a couple outfits with it. Make a capsule wardrobe. You know, make a capsule sweet wardrobe, a capsule gothic wardrobe, a capsule classic wardrobe with like, you know, oh, I can make 5 different coordinates with these like 4 pieces. There's nothing wrong with that. And then you get your taste of everything. It's when you want an entire wardrobe of gothic and then you're like, oh, actually, never mind. I want an entire wardrobe of sweet. And you're like, oh, actually, never mind. I want an entire wardrobe of classic. Oh my God, actually, never mind. Stop. You're going to tire yourself out. You are going to leave the community unhappy and unfulfilled. That's just a given. All right. 9. You hyperfixate on the tiniest details, and then 20 minutes later, you totally forget about it. This is me with like my neurodivergency. So like I relate to this really hardcore, and I had to kind of like sit down and reflect of like, okay, is this really worth all of the grief that I'm giving myself over these like socks? But you're just going to tire yourself out again. It's just like most of these points that I'm putting down here are just things that are just going to tire yourself out. If you're noticing that any of these things are impacting your in real life mental health, then you gotta stop. It's not something that's going to be healthy for you. Okay. Number 8, approval seeking to the highest degree. So there is a difference between, you know, seeking approval when you're first starting out of like, hey, am I doing this right? Like, you know, seeking constructive criticism in a way. And then there's a difference of like, oh, well, like one person didn't like this, but like everybody else in the group chat did, but like one person didn't like it. So now I'm not going to do it because one person didn't like it. Like, Lolita is your fashion. Like, yes, there are rules and guidelines, and yes, we are here to help you with those rules and guidelines, but like at the end of the day, all of this is because this is your fashion style and this is what you want to look like. So just because one person doesn't like your style doesn't mean that your style is wrong. And to put that in your head is just going to tire yourself out, because constantly wanting to make everybody happy and then getting upset when somebody isn't happy is just not going to help you out. All right, number 7, doing it for the gram. This kind of relates to the last point, but if you notice that you are somebody who only wears Lolita for like really like occasional events and things that they don't happen very often, or you only wear it for Instagram and then you're like super fixated on how many people compliment you or how many people like your picture, you're going to notice that it's not going to be super fulfilling for you. There are a lot of Lolitas who just wear it to conventions, and there are a lot of Lolitas who only wear it for meetups. Clearly, you don't have to be a everyday lifestyler to wear Lolita. Like, that's honestly unrealistic for most people. But if you notice that you're only wearing it because you want the attention from it, then you're just like, the minute that people start getting used to it, or the minute that you're not feeling that you're getting your due attention, then the magic wears off and goes away, and you're just gonna get tired of it. All right, the number 6, brand is the only real Lolita. Okay, first of all, I have a huge problem with this in general. Like I said before, it seems like it's a lot of the newbies who are gatekeeping, and like, I'm talking real gatekeeping, not like what people like to pretend is gatekeeping when we say like, hey, that outfit is not Lolita, like, really sorry, like, it's a really cute outfit, but it's not Lolita. I'm seriously talking about like true dictionary definition gatekeeping of, you are not wearing brand, therefore your coordinate is invalid. It's a toxic mindset to have. It's a trash mindset to have. And I honestly I don't accept it in my community. Replicas are the only thing that I will gatekeep. But if you are wearing Taobao, if you're wearing Bodyline, if you're wearing something handmade, that does not mean it is not Lolita. it doesn't, well, sometimes it doesn't necessarily mean that it is Lolita, but that is a completely separate subject. I'm specifically talking about people who are like, oh my gosh, like, sorry, but you're, like, that's not angelic pretty, and, like, so it's, like, not real Lolita, it's just, like, fake. It's, like, you're trying to be a Lolita, but you're really not there, and it's, that, having that mentality is just gonna burn you out, because in the minute that you don't have the finances to get brand, all of a sudden, you are defeating yourself. Or number 5, you buy brand as your first piece, and then you don't have money for the rest of your coordinate, but you're also super impatient. So this kind of, it's a really depends kind of point. Can you buy brand as your first piece? Yes. Yes, it's fine. Like, you can do whatever you want for your first piece. That is, as long as it's Lolita, it doesn't matter. My problem is that when people get really, really hyper-fixated, and it kind of ties to the point before that they get really hyper-fixated on brand, and they're like, if it's not brand, it's not Lolita, and they don't want to be that Ida, they don't want to have an Ida phase. Like, nobody wants to have an Ida phase. That's not something that people want to do, and you're going to have one. Most people have one. Like, there's nothing to be ashamed of as long as you grow from it. The problem is when you convince yourself that it has to be brand or it's nothing, or I'm fake. And then all of a sudden you don't have the finances to get the rest of your coordinate. And now all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, I have this really nice dress hanging in my closet and I don't have anything to do with it. Like, what do I do? And you're just going to tire yourself out. You're going to burn yourself out, and you're going to want to leave the fashion because you're going to be like, this is kind of dumb. Like, I don't want to wait, and I don't want to spend the time. I don't want to spend the effort. I just want to look pretty right away, and I just want brand right away. And it's like, you can work up for it. Like, you know, not all of us have the finances to buy brand at the first. Like, I didn't have finances. I still don't really have finances to buy brand all the time. Like, I have a couple brand dresses, and that's just because I found them at a good deal. Like, that's really it. Nothing wrong with that. Number 4, salt is king. Another really toxic trait. If you are one of those newbies who are like, oh my God, look at that newbie over there. I'm so glad that I'm not that kind of newbie. Lol, look at them. Like, toxic mindset, get out of high school. Sorry, we grow up here. Not acceptable. Anyway, that's really self-explanatory. All right, no concrete allowed. If you're one of those people who's like super vehemently, adamantly against concrete, and you're like, no, I don't want your opinions on things, you're gonna get bored. Like, concrete doesn't necessarily mean you did this bad and you gotta fix it. Like, sometimes concrete is like, oh my gosh, like, that's really cool, but like, maybe next time it would be really cool to see it with this kind of difference. And it's like, that doesn't necessarily mean what you did is wrong. That just means that somebody else had an idea to throw out there. And if you are somebody who doesn't accept concrete in any way, you're going to stagnate and you're going to find it really boring really fast. All right. Now we're going to get into the spicy ones. Number 2, Japanophiles. Basically, anybody who's like, oh my gosh, I'm so Lolita, huh? Oh my gosh, look how kawaii I am. I'm so Japanese. Like, first of all, it's froggin' racist. Anyway, I can go on forever, but if you are only in it to be kawaii, if you're only in it to be, oh my gosh, sugoi, like, you're gonna find it super freaking boring real fast when you realize that the people who are in this community are real people with real emotions that are not just like LARPing an anime character. That, like, some of us have personalities. Some of us don't like anime. Some of us don't interact with anything else of Japanese culture, that we just like, we see it, that it comes from there. We super respect it. We honor its roots and we honor its traditions. But other than that, we kind of completely divorce it from anything that is like traditionally Japanese, because Lolita fashion is not traditionally Japanese. It is a rebellion against Japanese beauty standards. Like, that is the whole point of the fashion. Most of these Japanophiles are not respectful of the culture. And just to make it about like this kawaii aesthetic, like you're gonna lose interest in it real fast. You're gonna lose interest in it. I can almost guarantee it. And number one, now this one is kind of, again, it's another one, it depends, but you have way too many interests. There is a very popular saying that if you spread your butter too thin, your toast will be dry. If you are in way too many hobbies, you're going to find that cutting the most expensive hobby is probably going to make your other hobbies a little bit more bearable. Lolita fashion is a very expensive hobby. It doesn't have to be an expensive hobby, but it can be an expensive hobby. It is a luxury hobby. By its very nature, it is a luxury hobby. So to sit there and unrealistically tell yourself that you're going to be in 30,000 hobbies and be fine, unless you're super rich and have all the time in the world, it's not realistic, and you're going to find yourself cutting hobbies. Whether it's Lolita or something else, there is going to be a hobby cut. I've been noticing that it's easier to cut Lolita when you're a newbie than when you're super into the fashion. I mean, obviously you can lose interest in the fashion at whatever time, but I noticed personally from personal experience of seeing this, that a lot of newbies justify it and get out of the fashion earlier when they realize, A, how much it's going to be for them. Especially if they have very specific taste. Sometimes it can be very expensive, or they are into way too many hobbies and are finding that they don't have enough time for Lolita, and they go, oh, listen, I really appreciated the aesthetic and I still like the aesthetic, but honestly, the amount of time and effort and energy I need to put into it is just not something that's reasonable for me. So is it an end-all be-all? No. Is anything that I mentioned in this list an end-all be-all? No. I mean, there are some times, I exhibit some of these traits myself, like I said before, and it is all about how it affects you and how it affects your life. And there's nothing wrong with that, but the list that I made here is just trends, like I said, that I've noticed in new Lolitas who leave right away or leave after a short period of time. Anyway, like I said before, I would love to know your opinions. Do you agree with my list? Do you want to add anything to my list? Do you see trends of this yourself? Leave a comment down below. I'm interested in hearing your story. But otherwise, I'm going to leave you here. Thank you so much for joining me today. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. And I hope you have a wonderful day.